True Crime Screening Room is a presentation of the Sherpa's podcast picks. Please keep in mind that some of the topics discussed might be too intense for younger or sensitive listeners. Even Jim, the podcast Sherpa, conducts some of these interviews while hiding under his desk. All while holding a stuffed mountain lion named Mr. Wubby.
Welcome to True Crime Screening Room, the podcast featuring interviews with creators who dedicate their work to unraveling true crime mysteries. We're now entering the investigation room in the Sherpa Chalet to meet your host, Jim the Podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, Rebels of the Sherpolution, and welcome to True Crime Screening Room. This is a side project of Podcast Picks with Jim the Podcast Sherpa, and these are the podcasts where we obviously get to speak to podcasters and authors from the true crime genre, and I think you're really going to enjoy the guest that we have today. He is a profiler. I've never spoken to a profiler, so this is going to be really fun. He's been a podcast host of a podcast called Where the Bodies Are Buried. And he also has a new book out called Speaking Truth to Evil. And it's really the true facts behind what we really don't know about serial killers. And this man should know he's interviewed over 1,000 convicted serial killers. Yes, all the way back to Charles Manson, Son of Sam, the BTK killer, and so much more. And we got to talk a little bit about that, and he gets to tell you what else he's been up to that is really going to be fascinating to you true crime fans. So his name is Phil Chalmers. He is down in North Carolina, and we got to spend a little bit of time together. And he's in between houses right now when he was saying that he's homeless, just for a little bit of explanation. But I'm sure once he gets all settled, there's going to be a lot of interesting things going on down in North Carolina. So if you live down there and you're a true crime fan, we've got some good news for you folks. So I think we should just head on over to the True Crime interview room, and we will have a chat with Phil Chalmers. Hello there, Rebels. We are here in the True Crime Room, and my guest today is a profiler. And we've never had a profiler on the show before. He is also a podcaster, hosting a podcast called Where the Bodies Are Buried, and he's doing a traveling show, too. And he just came out with a book, which, as you're hearing this, probably was just released. It is titled Speaking Truth to Evil, The Myths and Facts Surrounding Today's Serial Killers, from North Carolina, in an undisclosed location. Mr. Phil Chalmers. Phil, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, man.
You know, when I get a profiler on, you know what the first question is going to be that I'm going to ask, right? How exactly do you become a profiler?
Well, there's different types of profiling and different types of work. I don't work for the FBI, so what I do is I have my own company. I'm kind of solo.
Okay.
And I teach law enforcement and the FBI how to profile different types of offenders. So I've been doing this for 40 years. This is my 40th year, and I've been in front of many, many names, Charles Manson, BTK, Son of Sam, a lot of people and, just learning from these killers, these serial killers, school shooters, mass murderers, and taking everything I learned and teaching law enforcement, teaching even school administrators and the FBI how to profile dangerous people. How do you know when someone is a threat? How do you know when a student is dangerous? That's what I've been doing for the last 4 decades.
And your new book really talks about really what we have wrong about serial killers. Is that correct?
Yeah. The new book is, I've done several books on juvenile killers and school shooters. And this is my first serial killer book. And I've been diving into serial killers the last 10, 15 years exclusively. And I feel like I've come up with some myths and truths and how do you become a serial killer? And, what do we have wrong about the serial killers? And I think there's like 12 myths in the book. And yeah, it's shocking actually what you find out.
Do you think that probably over time they kind of get stereotyped, that they see one and who gets arrested and they figure, well, everyone is like that person?
Well, people only respond and they only learn from what the media feeds them, probably like anything else, right? So whatever the media feeds them, and that's what they believe. They see the same thing over and over in the media and in movies that they watch. And a lot of people are really hung up on the big hitters, Gacy, Bundy, Dahmer. And they kind of don't come off of that too much. They think everybody should be like those guys.
Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, your book has obviously shown you've done over 1,000 studies of serial killers.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to 40 years of doing this. I mean, there's thousands and thousands, but I've really focused to hone in on serial murder. And I would say between corresponding, emailing, calling, face-to-face meetings, probably over 1,000. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest myth that really throws everybody off about serial killers?
The biggest myth is number one in my book is that people think most serial killers are white.
Okay.
That's a myth.
But actually, how many were of other races?
So like the last 20 years, including up to today, 60% of serial killers are black and 31% are white, 8% Hispanic and 1% Asian. So only a third of serial killers are white, which I think is interesting. People think that is like 95 or 99%. And it's just simply because the media doesn't report the other cases. And unless it happens in your town, or in your big city, you just don't know about it.
Yeah. Now, you said you also studied the school shooters as well. Any school shooters, have they gone on to become serial killers? Or do you think that it's just kind of like a one event where they're reacting and then that's really the end of it, and whatever happens to them happens to them there?
You got it. It's the school shooter mass murderer mentality is the one big event, bang, go out with a bang, prove your point, get even with society, and usually they die.
Mm-hmm.
And then serial killer, of course, is somebody that loves what they're doing and they want to keep doing it over and over. They developed an addiction to it. There hasn't been too many people that have done both, but there has been a couple. There's been a couple mass murders, not school shooters, because those are mostly juveniles, right?
Right.
The juveniles usually get caught and they're done. But the couple mass murderers have committed a mass shooting, got away with it, and went on to become a serial killer. One of those guys is Todd Colehap out of South Carolina. Todd was a real estate agent. He owned his own real estate company. I mean, you talk about a clean cut, very popular guy. He did a mass murder, killed 4 people at a motorcycle shop, got away with it, then started a serial killing spree and was killing and burying people on his property. And then in the very end, he even did something everybody dreams about, these killers, and that he had a sex slave chained up inside a shipping container in his backyard.
That is like beyond scary.
He did it all. He did the mass murderer, the serial killer, and he had a sex slave. The trifecta of violent crime, right? So.
Yeah. I don't know if this is true, but I remember when I was younger, the son of Sam, David Berkowitz,
mm-hmm.
I know he had killed several women, and there was talk that he was actually going to go to a club to shoot the club up before he was arrested. Is that true, or is that just a myth?
No, I can't tell you for sure if it's true, but it would not surprise me about him at that time. Most people don't know this, but he shot a lot more people than he killed. He stabbed some people. So yeah, there's a lot more to his story than most people know. And that one surprised me. He told me that there was no barking dog. There was not multiple people. He acted alone. There's a new show out called The Sons of Sam. It's not true. And, he said it was simply, he was driven by the devil. He was, operating for Satan. That's his thing. And now he's very religious. He calls himself the son of hope instead of the son of Sam. Another guy that's very religious I talked to is Charles Manson's right-hand man, Tex Watson from the Helter Skelter. He's very religious. So some of those guys do turn to that, and that becomes their whole existence.
Now, you've obviously, having interviewed so many of these, there's got to be one or two that probably gave you the willies after you talked to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, people say, how do you sleep at night, or how do you do this? And it's kind of one of those things where when I'm done doing what I'm doing, I close my computer or finish an interview, and I go on to get a glass of wine with my wife, listen to jazz music, play with our dogs, go for a hike. We live a very normal life.
Right.
I don't wear like Jeffrey Dahmer t-shirts and stuff. But
that's actually
there are a couple creepy guys. In the book I have, like, there's a chapter on like the worst cases I've studied, and there's another chapter on the guys that are the creepiest guys I've talked to.
Mm-hmm.
There's this one guy, he's really creepy. He's called the Werewolf Butcher, and he's from Spokane, Washington. And he's a creepy guy, and his crime scenes were really, really shocking. And the things he did to the victims, removing their breasts, removing their, lower sexual organs, drinking their blood, posing the bodies, the way they cut them open. One young girl had a baseball bat inserted in her body. It was a very, very shocking crime scene. And this guy's super creepy. He's a child molester. And he was wanting me to send him like nude pictures of little kids to the prison. I was like, I don't do stuff like that. I don't know what I'm talking to here, but, send me this and send me that. I said, he's one of the creepier guys. I mean, I talked to a lot of bad guys, Jim. A lot of these guys are bad guys. I mean, they're all bad guys, right? But he was probably the creepiest. His name is Jack Spillman, and he's the Werewolf Butcher. But then there's some really shocking cases like the Toolbox Killers, the Toy Box Killers, the Candyman in Houston, Gacy, the things that John Wayne Gacy did in Chicago. Gary Heidnik kept prisoners in his basement and shocked them every night. I mean, there's some really bad guys out there, but yeah, I mean, they're each of them have their own stories. And one of the things people ask me is, like, what's the one thing all serial killers have in common? And what it is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. You have to take them one at a time. Like, you can't jam them into the box of Dahmer, Gacy, Bundy. You know what I mean? You gotta take them one at a time. They're all different. They all act different. They all have different upbringings. Some have sex with their victims, some don't. Some are angry, some are retaliating, some are racist. They all have their own thing. But I'll tell you another big myth, since we're kind of going that way, is people think serial killers kill up close and personal. So, they think of a serial killer strangling their victims, and he's the Boston Strangler, or stabbing the victims. It's the Warwick slasher. But the number one way they're killing people now is shooting people. So, a lot of us, overwhelming, like 60% are shooters. And the new profile is a black male shooting people at night, stalking the city. And we're seeing a lot of that all over the country. And it's the new threat, and it's a threat to everybody. So, and, another myth I talk about is most people think, serial killers, victims are female because they're men. They have to be killing women, but it's 50-50. So a lot more men are being killed by serial killers. And that's because a lot of guys are not lust killers. They're just angry and they're shooting people. So anybody's fair game.
Sure. Now, there's a case out now that a lot of people have been talking about, the Rex Uriman case, the Long Island serial killer. I know you usually speak to the convicted ones who are in prison. I was curious, do you have any thoughts on this case?
It's funny. I just got his pill bottle. I'm opening a museum in April in North Carolina, and I just got his pill bottle, which is kind of cool. I don't know a lot about the case because it hasn't been through trial, and he's claiming he's innocent, so he's never going to do an interview. Same thing with the Kohlberger guy that stabbed the four college students in Idaho. Same thing. He hasn't gone through trial. He's claiming he's innocent. So, I kind of wait till that whole process goes through the system and see kind of how it shakes out. So I don't think he's innocent. I think both of those guys are guilty.
Okay.
And, but we'll see. I don't think he's going to talk to anybody, especially me, because he's claiming he's innocent. Usually those guys don't do interviews and stuff.
Yeah. Actually, I did want to actually touch on what you just said.
Yeah.
You're opening a true crime museum. I believe it's in 2026.
Yes.
And this is going to be in North Carolina.
Yeah. So, I told you I was homeless. So I moved out of Sarasota, Florida in June 4th. And I moved into my new house in North Carolina July 1st. So we're kind of like floating around.
Okay.
And all of our stuff's in a storage unit. And we decided to move to Mayberry, right? Where does the serial killer guy live? Of course, he lives in Mayberry, the safest town in America. So I'm moving to Mount Airy, which is Mayberry, where Andy Griffith grew up. And my wife's a principal. So, we have a really normal life. My wife's a principal in Mayberry, and I am to open a crime museum there's a lot of visitors. There's 1.5 million to 2 million visitors there every year. So we're excited about that. It's kind of got a crime prevention base for it. It's very educational, but man, it's going to be an awesome, the only true serial killer museum in the world, really. And it's operated by the guy who actually talked to those people. So you'll be able to see the Christmas cards Charles Manson sent me, the letters David Berkowitz sent me, the artwork, BTK sends me, all that kind of stuff will be displayed.
Wow. That is pretty, pretty wild. I mean, are the displays going to like highlight the killers? I mean, just out of curiosity, how are you going to?
It's going to be like making my book come alive.
Uh-huh.
So you'll have headphones on. I'll be talking to you. It'll be a guided tour, or I'll do a live tour. And it's just walking you through what is a serial killer? How do they become a serial killer? What makes them that? What are their myths? What are the truths? What is a signature? What is an MO? It's really it's like going to a dinosaur museum, but it's serial killers. And I'm going to teach you about it. You'll walk into Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. We're going to have a replica apartment of Jeffrey Dahmer to kind of walk you through his story. And every couple of years, we'll change that into another offender. But there's some crime scenes. If you want to see that, we honor victims. We teach people about crime prevention, how not to be a victim of these killers. And when you do this for 40 years, you kind of learn. This is what I would never crawl up into someone's semi-truck. I would never hitchhike. I would never sell my body on the side, a street corner. I mean, these are the things that get you killed. And, so that it's not just a shocking horror movie type thing. It's more of an educational thing.
Yeah. There are so many fans of true crime too. And, they love the serial killer podcast, obviously, as you know, with Where the Bodies Are Buried.
Yeah.
So does your podcast go along with the book, or does the book really cover stories that people really don't know about?
Oh, so the podcast we did, it's owned by actor Dennis Quaid.
Okay.
And we did 20 episodes with them. And it was a good podcast. I did 2 seasons and I decided not to do any more. They wanted to do some more. I just decided I'd done 20 of them. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been looking to do TV, and I was working with the producer of Unsolved Mysteries, a legend in the game.
Sure.
And we just had trouble finding a place for the kind of show I wanted to do. And I just gave up on TV. I decided to do this book, which is coming out next week. And then I've been traveling, for 40 years, hotels, airports, airplanes, rental cars. And I thought, it's enough. I'm going to do this until April. I'm going to open up a museum and be home every night and, teach people when they come to town, and draw people from around the world. So, it's been a long, hard road of touring for 40 years and written several books and, done some podcasts, done some TV shows. I did Killer Kids on A&E.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is going to be the end for me. It's coming to the end, and I'm going to end up in a museum and, do something I really love to do.
It's an interesting way to put a bow on it though, because especially when you're on a podcast or in a book, it's not as visual a medium for people, unfortunately. It's just more audio.
Yeah.
But, then, I think, especially with that, I would think that when seeing becomes believing, then I think the reality of it really sets in, and it's not just this mythic creature of a serial killer, so to speak.
And we're calling it an immersive experience. And I do this evening show right now, and it's kind of a merger. If what is the museum? It's a merger of my 2-hour evening show we do at wineries and breweries, which is really fun, in my book. So it's a merger of all this together, and it's an immersive experience. So you're going to go in here and get immersed into the world of serial killers. Like we're using AI where you'll walk into a room and Jeffrey Dahmer will start talking to you. BTK, Charles Manson, Ted Bundy will actually talk to you. We're using the AI stuff. It's unbelievable what can be done right now. So we got lots of surprises, and we're not going to give a whole lot of stuff away, but it's going to be really exciting.
Now, the show is called Serial Killers, The Experience. Do you cover just certain killers in that show?
Yeah. So the Serial Killers, The Experience is my book coming alive into a live show. So I kind of like what I said, like the book, I walk them through my most shocking case. I have a live serial killer call into the winery or the brewery. So imagine 50 women drinking wine, a little bit tipsy, raising their hand, asking a serial killer questions. That's crazy. Nobody does it. But we do.
It's a weird night out.
Yeah. They love it though. They go crazy, and then I bring some of my museums. So they're taking selfies with Jeffrey Dahmer's spoon and stuff like that. They love it. And, but it's just a way to me to, share my knowledge of serial murder and always at the end to teach them crime prevention. I don't want anybody to be a victim. We have 16,000, murder victims every year in the United States. People are getting killed, and it's pretty sad, but trying to teach people these are the things you do to survive or not become a victim.
I've had the opportunity, especially this season, to talk to a lot of true crime authors, and a lot of them have done books on serial killers. Mm-hmm. And I asked them one question, and I'm really fascinated by what your response is going to be. What do you think draws people to true crime and all of this?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the main draw for them?
I would say about 80% of true crime fans are females.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's three things. Like, number one, women want to fix people. How can I fix this person? Number two, it's just crazy to think about what people do to each other. I mean, you can't stop listening. They did what?
Right.
There's that aspect of it. And then there's a lot of people that are in the business, I call it, the college students who are, criminal justice and law enforcement and people in probation, parole, people that are kind of in the business are really intrigued by it. That's why I would watch Dateline, because I'm kind of interested as well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts myself, but I'll watch Dateline 20, 48 Hours Mystery if I'm sitting and watching TV or something. And my wife loves Dateline.
Yeah.
I'm starting to worry about her. She listens to it nonstop. I started to test my food and stuff before I eat. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. And, I started out, this is crazy. I went to college for accounting, and I dropped out after 2 years of accounting and decided this is not what I want to do. And I immediately started working with troubled kids. And it just one thing led to another, speaking at schools, doing assemblies, interviewing these kids, watching the Columbine massacre, writing a big book about that. And it's just one thing led to another. I never thought I'd be talking about serial killers. And then lastly, I never thought I'd have a museum. So it's kind of weird. You just kind of follow your passions and your, what you're interested in and your passion, and, you'll find it. I've been doing this for 40 years and I feel like I've never worked a day in my life. It's been just truly exciting, and I enjoy it. But the new book I'm going to drop is going to be a bomb drop on the true crime community. I feel like it's the updated research that John Douglas and Robert Ressler and all those guys in the FBI profiling unit at Quantico. They did some research in the 70s. And a lot of people, if you look at most people that are doing what you and I are doing today, they're stuck on that research. And I hear experts all the time on these TV shows, they're quoting the myths that I say, these are myths, most serial killers are white. I hear it every day on one of these shows, or, most serial killers kill women. I mean, it's all wrong. And so I thought I need to do this. I need to just shatter the myths and educate people on what's really happening. For example, most serial killers are black. And when I say that, people are like, are you racist? I am so not racist that I'm talking about this, because a lot of their victims are black children and black females. And nobody stands up for them, and nobody talks about their case except for me. But in my book, people say, oh, you mean gang members? No, we don't count gang members. They're serial killers, like the Brooklyn Strangler. Have you ever heard of the Brooklyn Strangler? Have you ever heard of the Taco Bell Strangler? Some of the most interesting cases you've never heard, because you don't know who they are. There's over 1,000 black serial killers in my new book. Most people can't name one. So America's deadliest male serial killer killed 93 people. Sam Little is a black male. Roberta Elder, black female, America's deadliest female serial killer. She killed 13. America's youngest modern day serial killer, the Warwick Slasher guy I talk to all the time. He's a black male. He stabbed 4 people by his 15th birthday. Unknown. They're all unknown. And that's what I'm doing with this book, is dropping a bomb and waking people up. There are at least 100 active serial killers at any given time as we speak. There's a lot of truck driver serial killers. I believe there's an active serial killer in every major city at all times. You only have to kill 2 people to be a serial killer today. They just changed it to 2. I can't imagine how many are active right now, right? So there's a lot of things I'm going to share people. The signatures, their calling card never changes. The MO, how they kill people, often changes, And we're just kind of walking them through these things and teaching them. And I'm going to be training law enforcement for the next 9 months and speaking at these wineries and breweries. And then it'll end up in April. I will open up this museum and be able to, hone in on just that for the rest of my career.
And you have a website also, is that right?
There's a lot of stuff on my website, philchalmers.com. You can get, there's free notebooks. You can get, my YouTube channel. I do a lot of interviews on YouTube. You can check out my podcast, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff is there. And, and I welcome any questions. You can email me too.
So could you let everybody know, where they can find you on social, the exact address?
Yeah. So just, Instagram is Phil Chalmers Profiler. Facebook, I think it's the same thing, Phil Chalmers Profiler. YouTube is True Crime Phil, I think, or just look up Phil Chalmers, it'll come up. And the podcast you can get anywhere podcasts are. You can find Where the Bodies Are Buried. My favorite podcast episode is when I interviewed 2 Ted Bundy survivors, which is super cool. One Ted Bundy survivor, Kathy Kleiner, will be at our grand opening of our museum, so she'll be there. She survived Ted Bundy. But and you're welcome to check out all the stuff I have. I post often on Facebook and Instagram about crime. I just posted again about a new serial killer just killed 18 people that nobody knows in Alabama. But I try to post that stuff pretty often and kind of keep people updated on what's happening in the true crime world. And appreciate coming on this podcast and excited for you to share this with your fans and your followers. And anything I can do for you, just let me know.
Thank you very much, Phil. And I was going to say, with 100 active serial killers currently, you've got a pretty big dance card that you have to fill, I imagine.
They're out there. And people say, how do you know when you bump into a serial killer? That's the thing. You'll never know.
Right.
I'll be doing a show and somebody will walk in, they'll say, how do you know I'm not a serial killer? And I say, because they wouldn't say that. That's how.
I like that.
They would be having wine next to you and you would never know. Yeah.
Okay. The book is called Speaking Truth to Evil, the Myths and Facts Surrounding Today's Serial Killers. Again, he's the host of Where the Bodies Are Buried, Phil Chalmers. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Listen and subscribe on podcast apps everywhere. And we're on YouTube at Sherpolution. Sorry, no video. You're welcome.
Thanks so much to Phil Chalmers for coming on the show. And as I do with all of the other authors, the Amazon link to Phil's book will be included in the show notes. So if you want to get that, I'm sure you really want to, especially if you are a true crime lover. You're definitely going to enjoy it. And also, thank you so much for spending a little time and checking the show out. And if you can, share the show on social media with some of your friends and say, hey, check out what I'm listening to. And after they're done laughing, they may just want to listen too. So while we're on the subject of social media, I wanted to let you know that shortly 2 of my Sherpolution channels on social media will probably be closing down. That would be the one on Facebook and the one on Blue Sky. I've been experimenting with what we can do with promoting the show and everything like that. And I want to focus a little bit more on where people are checking out the videos. And if there's more that I can do with the show as far as social media promotion, I will try and come up with an idea in the near future. But that's what we're going to do. And I noticed really social media has changed since I started doing the show. I started doing the show right before COVID, and we were allowed to actually post the links to the actual episodes within our social media pages. And I'm sure that kind of sated a lot of people who wanted to listen to podcasts if, they couldn't go to work or anything like that. It gave them something to do, and it was actually pretty helpful. But now, I don't know, I kind of feel that a lot of social media has just become, I'm right and you're wrong. And the place for podcasts seems to have disappeared in there, very much lost in the shuffle. I mean, I know that there are some that have successful social media, and we've even spoken to some of those people too. But I think for this kind of show, because we do so many different types of topics, and we try and give a little something to everybody, it's probably just not working right. Maybe in the future, if I have a way to tweak it, I will do so. But for now, I think that we're just going to be just kind of shutting down some of the channels. But of course, you can still listen to the show on podcast apps everywhere, and even the YouTube channel, which is the Sherpolution YouTube page. If you want to check that out, it's just audio. You're welcome. And we'll see what happens from there. So that leaves me with Sherpalution on Instagram, and we'll keep Threads on there and TikTok. So if you want to find out what's going on with the show, please use those apps. And you'll also notice in the show notes that we actually have a link to our website, which actually has all of the episodes there also. So if you don't want to download any apps and you just want to go on the internet, that's fine too. The link is right there for you to enjoy. And it's very plain and simple, so I hope you enjoy it. And until then, I will see you next time, and I will say to you, Viva la Sherpalution!
Thanks for listening to True Crime Screening Room. Subscribe to the show on podcast apps or the Sherpalution YouTube page. Until then, stay away from evil. And more important, Viva la Sherpalution.